Hello, and welcome to Region Locked. When many think of Squaresoft, they will immediately jump to the Final Fantasy series, a collection of RPGs with a loose common theme running through them. The company has historically been the masters of RPGs, particularly when it comes to the SNES's library of games, having published several of the best-selling and highest-rated titles on the platform for the genre. However, Square created several standalone games which never saw Western release, with one in particular combining multiple stories. That game is Live Alive. There's no confirmation as to how the game's name is pronounced, so for the sake of this video, we will be calling it Live Alive rather than Live Alive or Live Alive or whatever. Live Alive was published in 1994 for the SNES and features 7 different playable characters with their own aesthetic and stories. Typical of the RPG genre, the game focuses on having the player explore various locations through overworld navigation, talking with a variety of different NPCs, exploring dungeons, and gaining experience points in order to level up. Unlike most RPGs, however, most of the game's battles are plot-driven and fixed, with only one chapter having any form of random encounters. These battles play out similarly to turn-based tactical titles, from a top-down perspective on a 7x7 grid. While the player is able to perform basic attacks, several characters also have their own unique skills. Rather than using magic with a dedicated MP meter, as is standard for many RPGs, skills instead can take multiple turns to charge. During this period, the player cannot move and can be interrupted by enemies, cancelling the attack. Some attacks can alter tiles, causing a variety of effects when a character is standing on them, such as taking fire damage on a burning tile or receiving a status effect. When a character's life reaches 0, they are knocked out rather than being immediately killed. It's possible to revive the downed character by simply healing them. However, if the downed character is attacked, they will be removed from the fight altogether. After the fight is concluded, they are returned to the player with full life. The game's basic premise follows heroes throughout time. During each period of history, there has been a hero who has fought for justice. Each of the game's 7 different protagonists has their own dedicated chapter, which can be chosen in any desired order, with each one working as a sort of standalone game. Chapters take place across a wide span of time, ranging from prehistoric times to modern day and even the distant future. Though the gameplay remains largely the same, each chapter does feature some variation. The Caveman chapter, Contact, with Pogo. During the prehistoric era, a young woman named Belle has escaped from a tribe seeking to sacrifice her to their deity, Odo, a T-Rex. She escapes to the south, hiding amongst another tribe's dwelling. When she is discovered by Pogo, our hero, and his friend, he helps to hide her from his tribe. After being discovered, the 3 are exiled and must fend for themselves alone. In a time before speech, this portion of the game involves no dialogue, instead having characters communicate through visual expressions. The Kung Fu Master chapter, Inheritance, with Jin Shangquan. Set in ancient China, in his old age, a powerful Kung Fu master has decided he needs to pass on his wisdom. He proceeds to gather 3 potential young protégés. The player trains the students through 3 stages, one for endurance, one for agility, and one for strength. Granted 4 training sessions per stage, the player must decide how to split them amongst the 3 trainees. The Ninja chapter, Secret Orders, with Oboro. Set in feudal Japan, a young ninja of the Enma clan, Oboro, is sent to infiltrate the castle of Odo. Ode has assembled a team of powerful evildoers and plans to plunge Japan into chaos. Oboro must free one of Ode's prisoners, said to be the only one capable of stabilizing Japan before facing off against the villains. The player has the option of sneaking through the castle, avoiding the majority of the fights, or they can simply cut down any opponents that stand in their way. The player can activate a cloak of invisibility to avoid detection from the patrolling guards, however they are unable to move when in cover. There are numerous possible paths to choose from, some more dangerous than others. The Cowboy chapter, Wandering, with the Sundown Kid. In the American Old West, a lone, quiet cowboy with lightning-fast gun skills travels the land. The Sundown Kid. After his home was raided by a gang of outlaws, the guilt drove him to place a bounty on his own head so that he may find a place to die. Stopping off in Success Town, he takes on the burden of protecting it and its villagers from a bandit gang named the Crazy Bunch. The player has to collect resources that can be used as traps for when the bandits arrive, with the player selecting which NPC sets up which trap. Several character names in this section possibly make reference to famous outlaws of the Old West, with the Sundown Kid being the Sundance Kid, and the young child Billy being a reference to Billy the Kid. The Wrestler chapter, The Strongest, with Masaru. Taking place in modern day, Masaru of Japan dreams of becoming the strongest person on Earth. He enters a global fighting tournament so that he can learn more about combat styles from around the world, defeating each opponent to learn their skills and earning the title of the strongest person in the world. Unlike the other chapters of the game, this chapter has no overworld exploration. Instead, Masaru must compete in a series of fights, including a character clearly referencing Hulk Hogan, and with dialogue screens like those seen in Street Fighter II. The Mech chapter, Flow, with Akira Tadakoro. Taking place in Japan in the near future, kidnappings are occurring thanks to a biker gang called the Crusaders. Their intentions are unknown, but an orphan with psychic powers, Akira, sets out to rescue a child from his orphanage who has been taken by the gang. Akira soon learns of a government conspiracy involving mechs. It's highly likely that this chapter has been inspired by the manga and influential anime series Akira, a story involving psychic powers and biker gangs in the near future. The Science Fiction chapter, Mechanical Heart, with Cube. In the distant future, a robot on a transport ship headed to Earth with a behemoth in the cargo hold gets wrapped up in a crisis situation. The ship featured in this chapter is called Cogito Ergo Sum, a Latin phrase meaning I think, therefore I am, a famous philosophical statement that represents self-identity and awareness. The ship's pilot, Kirk, is named after James T. Kirk from Star Trek, and Corporal Darth is likewise named after Darth Vader from Star Wars. This chapter features almost no combat besides the final boss. An optional minigame can be played, however, in which the player must defeat 9 waves of enemies while taking on the role of Captain Square. Some chapters have multiple endings, and the player is able to replay them in order to achieve the results they desire. These endings can be decided by something as simple as dying, and each ending has an impact on the game's finale. A recurring dark comedic joke appears in the form of the father and son duo with the surname Watanabe. They appear in each chapter, and in most cases, the father will die, leaving the son distraught and worse off, providing nothing to the plot and only lending itself to humor. We're about to spoil the end of the game, so if you'd like to avoid any spoilers, skip to the time shown on screen. After completing all 7 of the original chapters, it should become apparent that the boss of each chapter is a variation of the same demon, Odio. An 8th story is unlocked at this point, the medieval chapter, King of Demons, with Orsted. Orsted, a hero in the land of Lucretia, and his friend Strabo compete in a tournament to win Princess Alicia's hand in marriage. The night after Orsted's victory, Alicia is kidnapped by the Demon King, and thus he and his friend embark to rescue her. Meeting the heroes of old who previously defeated the Demon King, Hash and Uranus, they are convinced to fight him once again. The team battles and defeats the Demon King, but not without the loss of Hash, who passes from the plague. Unable to find Alicia, and after Strabo is seemingly crushed by falling rocks, Orsted and Uranus return home defeated. The night of their return, Orsted is tricked into killing the King of Lucretia by the Demon King, causing others to accuse him of being the Demon King himself. After escaping imprisonment, Orsted returns to the mountain to find Strabo alive and well. Out of jealousy, Strabo sold his soul so that he may become the next Demon King, and thus he was the one who tricked Orsted into the act of murder. After defeating Strabo and rescuing Princess Alicia, she professes her love for Strabo, blaming Orsted for Strabo's descent into madness. She then commits suicide. Unable to handle the events surrounding him, Orsted makes the decision to become the next Demon King himself, donning the name Odio. Seeking out revenge, he kills everybody in the land. The final chapter. For the game's final chapter, the player can decide which character to take control of. After the events in the previous chapter, Orsted summons the heroes of the game for a final showdown. The player must recruit the 6 other characters and defeat Orsted in his final demon form. After being defeated, Orsted returns to his original form and requests the player kill him. After refusing, Orsted attacks again, forcing each protagonist to defeat the incarnation of Odio from their respective chapter. After taking each one down, the heroes all explain their reasons for fighting. Moved by their words, Orsted returns them back to their time periods, warning them that anybody is capable of becoming a demon if they are filled with enough hatred. He passes away, and Lucretia is returned to normal. With the final chapter of the game, if the player chooses Orsted as the lead role, he will take on the form of each boss in their time periods, defeating the heroes in each one. Orsted is then left to a world empty of human life while the credits roll. Live Alive is directed by Takashi Tokita after he had just completed work as a lead designer on Final Fantasy IV. After the game's release, he would then go on to direct Chrono Trigger, Parasite Eve, and Chocobo Racing. Tokita stated that by splitting the game into several different chapters, it was easier to create 7 shorter stories at once with different teams, rather than a single story playing throughout a long game. Each chapter in the game has its own unique style, designed by different popular manga artists, including Ryoji Minagawa, Gosho Aoyama, and Kazuhiko Shimamoto. The game's soundtrack was solely composed by Yoko Shimomura, renowned for her work on Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy XV, and a variety of Mario RPGs. References were included in the Final Fantasy Legends mobile series for Live Alive's 20th anniversary. Orsted appeared as a boss, and everyone that participated in the quest received a phantom of pure Odio. The Nintendo DS game, Theatrhythm Final Fantasy Curtain Call, also has 2 downloadable songs from the game, Birds in the Sky, Fish in the River, and Megalomania. During Megalomania's stage, Orsted and Strabo can be seen fighting on the Demon King's Mountain. This would be the only time that a Western market would be exposed to any content from Live Alive. Live Alive received a re-release in Japan through Nintendo's Virtual Console on both Wii U in 2015 and for the new Nintendo 3DS in 2016. Because the 7 artists that were used to create the game were working for Shogakukan Publishing at the time of the game's original release, Shogakukan holds partial rights over the game. This made an official re-release a challenge for Square, but it also helps to determine a factor for why the game never saw localization. No official reason was provided by Square as a company, but the variety of tweets from Takashi Tokita regarding the game's Virtual Console release explain how the game's rights are still handled, as well as how instrumental community interest was in the game's revival. However, it is also possible that the game didn't manage to gain notoriety due to being released mere months after Square's smash hit game, Final Fantasy VI, resulting in Square as a company having little interest in working through the legal process. In 2011, Spencer of Silicon Era asked Takashi Tokita if he would ever consider a remake of the title. Tokita responded, "Definitely. If the fans request it, I'd love to do that. In my experience, Live Alive's omnibus style of multiple chapters was a learning experience and an element I brought over to Final Fantasy IV, The After Years. That's why that game has multiple chapters as well." The game received a fan translation in 2001 from Gideon Z of translation group Aeon Genesis as a project that he had undertaken for a business class. The resulting patch was widely considered to be usable, allowing the game to be played through in a largely unpolished state. In 2008, a new translation was made after Gideon took on help regarding the technical portion of the patch so that he could instead concentrate on writing. Considered to be the definitive work of the translation group, the 2.0 deluxe release of the translation doesn't just fix a large number of bugs present in the original fan translation, but also introduces a unique font for each chapter, as well as some other cosmetic flair. Thanks for watching. Region Locked is supported by some pretty nice peeps over on that there Patreon. If you'd like to help us out, check out the link in the description below.
Here remains a loggable absent Patreon crew. Gitsaberry, Chad Barnin, Hector Amarillo, your boy Beowulf, Straight Up Yuri, Pantheon, Super AJS, Yumi Lopalico, Kikazu, Devin Sloan, Error 1355, Phantom Sonic, Burnatch, The Three Master Gamers, Max of Future Robert Cox, Petit Mew, All White the Second, 322-32232, Nestor Delion the Third, Jordan Ferrari, Vitas Varnas, Aureus Bear, Maximilian Summers, Matthews. They're all dead, Dave.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up with future Region Locked episodes. Be sure to hit the bell to catch them all. Thank you very much.